Thank you, the Three Musketeers or the Kingston Trio. I'm not sure which, but thank you so much for that. The second one. Beautiful song. Very moving. So I have two readings I would like to start us off with today. And the first one you'll know, and you can recite with me if you want to. But I'm going to stop where you don't think I will. But it's Luke 2:8-10. In the King James Version, probably one of the rare times you will hear me recite it. And there were in the same country shepherds abiding in the fields, keeping watch over their flocks by night. And lo, the angel of the Lord came upon them. The glory of the Lord shone round about them, and they were sore afraid. And the angel said unto them, Fear not. The second reading I have, you may know, some people ascribe it to Nelson Mandela, but it was actually written by Marianne Williamson, and it's called Our Deepest Fear. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We're all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in every one of us. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. So a long time ago, in the first grade, when the first grade was the first year you were in school, I was assigned the reading of Luke 2:8-14 for the first grade Christmas play. That was when you could have a Christmas play. Yeah, and that was at Oakview Elementary in High Point, where Leslie has served as the media specialist, and not too far from here. So I kind of laughed at it. It's like, dang, I've been reading scripture from a podium for a long time. But even at the age of 7, it struck me how prominent the theme of fear not is in the narrative of Jesus' birth. It starts with the shepherds who were sore afraid. The angels appeared to them, and you have to understand that this was a big deal. The shepherds were the dregs of the Hebrew society. They stunk. They were loners, so they couldn't be part of their own tribe. And they could not come back to town to be religiously cleansed at the Sabbath. So they were the dregs of society. I've heard them associated like used car salesmen, but I was raised by a used car salesman, so it's like, homie ain't going there. So, but they were not honest people for the most part either. So it was a big deal that the angels first announced the birth of Jesus to those who were outcasts, essentially. They interrupted the shepherds' night watch to herald the birth of Jesus. and to invite the shepherds to go and see it for themselves. So even at Jesus' birth, he's associating with the dregs of society. A second earlier pronouncement of fear not had come from the angel visiting Mary to tell her she was about to conceive this son. You have to understand that this is a very big deal because as a single, unwed, pregnant woman, she could have been stoned to death, quite legally. So it's no surprise that she would question the angel. It's like, how is this possible? The angel Gabriel replied, "Fear not, Mary, for you have found favor with God." The angel interrupted Mary's plans to marry Joseph in the way that her culture would allow it, and invited her to become Jesus' mother. A third fear not was spoken to Zechariah, the soon-to-be father of John the Baptist. And once again, if Gabriel shows up, you better pay attention, I think. This time he appeared to Zechariah in the temple. And Zechariah stands there, as the scriptures say, startled and gripped with fear. The angel tells him that he too is going to be a father. This was a big deal because Elizabeth and Zechariah were getting on in age. And they had been praying and praying and praying for offspring and didn't think their prayers were going to be answered. He, like Mary, questioned, how is this possible? So Gabriel answered him, "Fear not, for your prayers have been heard." Gabriel had interrupted the priestly task of Zechariah, the elder Zechariah, and invited him to be the father of John the Baptist, to be the father he'd always wanted to be. So later in the birth narrative, yet again, an angel appears with this directive of fear not. This time it was to Joseph in a dream, actually the first of 4 dreams that Joseph has. And it was right after he had resolved, I'm going to send Mary away quietly and save her and my family from disgrace. I don't know if Gabriel's to blame for this, but there's no telling. The angel said to Joseph, "Son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary as your wife." This was a big deal because they both could be shunned. But Joseph's dream of saving himself and Mary from ridicule was interrupted by the angel's invitation for him to marry her and to become an earthly father to Jesus. Fear not. I think you get the gist that it's a big deal when fear not is said, and it's an important thread in the birth of Jesus. But if we dig deeper into the Christian Testament, we'll see that fear not is not limited to his birth story. Throughout his ministry, we read often Jesus saying, "Fear not." The very beginning of his ministry, he's out on the shores of the lake or the ocean, Gennesaret. Thank you, Gennesaret. I knew it had more syllables than I could give it. And he had said to the fishermen that he had invited to become his disciples, "Fear not." Much later, he had instructed these same apostles to fear not as he calmed the stormy waters, and again to Peter when he said, "Get out of the boat." In yet another story, Jesus tells a grieving father, "Fear not, only believe," and his daughter would be saved from death. One of the most soothing passages about fear is from Luke 12, where Jesus says, "Fear not, little flock. It is God's good pleasure to give you the kingdom." But the theme of fear not doesn't end when Jesus is crucified. When the women disciples arrived at the tomb where the body of Jesus was laid, they encountered an angel with the exact same message. Matthew 28 tells us, "The angel at the tomb said, 'Fear not. Jesus is not here. He has risen.'" And later in the scene, Jesus himself greets the women with, "Fear not, I'm with you always." And well after Jesus' ascension, Paul is visited in his dreams by Jesus. And Jesus instructs him, "Fear not. Speak out and do not be silent, for I am with you." With a little more digging, it's kind of clear that there are hundreds of fear not references throughout the Judeo-Christian scriptures. Some say it's 365 times, which is rather convenient to our calendar. But there are others who say there are many more, maybe 1,000. I can't prove at this moment how many there are, but it seems that every time an angel or Jesus or even God has something important to say, and it's going to interrupt our plans, it begins with "Fear not." What humans perceive as an interruption to plans actually turns out to be an invitation to in some way fulfill God's purpose. Get out of the boat. Speak up. Only believe. Go and see for yourself. So as we celebrate Christmas this week, I find myself once again reflecting on this constant message of fear not that infuses the stories of Jesus' birth, Jesus' heritage, his ministry, and his legacy. The way God interrupts our plans with an invitation to participate fearlessly in bringing love and light to the world. Can you imagine the story of humankind had any of the characters in the narrative of Jesus' birth said, I'm good. I'm just going to stay safe and secure right where I'm at. So no, Gabriel. I think I'm going to choose fear. Can you imagine how that would have changed the world? If I had put myself in, or if I have put myself in Mary's shoes or in Joseph's sandals, or if I had stood in that darkened field as the angels trumpeted, "Fear not," I say I would have trembled, but I probably would have done more than that, actually. I'd be like, And I would likely, knowing me, I would have questioned. I would have said, really? How is that possible? And I wonder, are there places where we might heed this herald of fear not? In some way, how we live, how we breathe, and how we have our being? Is there something that you've been afraid of that you haven't done because you're not quite sure how it's possible? It might be something so new in God's purpose that it doesn't seem feasible in our fearful hearts. I think that perhaps accepting God's invitation of fear not is the foundational message, not only of Christmas, but of Jesus' legacy. As the writer of 2 Timothy reminds us, for this reason I remind you to rekindle the light of God that is within you. For God did not give us a spirit of fear, but rather a spirit of power and of love and of self-discipline. So I wish for you that the message of Christmas liberates you from fear, and that you are willing to accept God's invitation, however it might disrupt your life, and God's gift of fearless love and light. And so it is.